Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is an incredible opportunity to speak with all of you today. My name is Gavin Newton-Tanzer. I am president of Sunrise International and partnership director for AWE, here to share with you one of our new and exciting on-nights. Today, we're going to be talking about the rise of consumer smart glasses. So something that I know many of you have been following for quite some time. And as we think about the new developments that are coming from various hardware developers around the world, just trying to see when is it going to happen that we're going to actually have that breakout consumer device. So we'll be learning a little bit more from each of our panelists today. Before we do so, a couple of quick announcements. So of course, for those of you that don't know already, we do run our big annual events 4 times a year in USA, in San Francisco, in Asia, last year in Chengdu, and in EU, and which will be coming up again in October of 2022. And in Tel Aviv. In the meantime, we have our regional all-night events. Of course, now most of these that we have taken online, but looking forward to bringing back offline quite soon. I am also very excited to be seeing all of you, or many of you, in person quite soon at Santa Clara, where this is going to be the first time we're back in person for a hybrid event. Very excited for that. And for those that are not able to go to the in-person event, we do actually have virtual tickets where we'll be live streaming and providing networking opportunities online as well. Additionally, if you haven't already, we do recommend following us on social media, recording or watching our various recordings on YouTube. We do put all on-nights and a large percentage of conference content post events on those channels. So please feel free to do so. And of course, subscribe to the weekly spatial. The Awe Academy has become increasingly popular as well. So for those of you looking to kind of buff up your skills, either as developers or on the business side, we have a variety of courses that are available for you and are continuing to develop more and more courses as time goes on. I did have the great pleasure to work closely with our AWE Asia team. We just finished the AWE Asia event actually just 2 weeks ago. So while it was mostly a domestic audience, we are looking forward very much to having our international audience join us again quite soon in August of next year. So we do hope I can see many of you there. One of our esteemed sponsors from that event is actually our sponsor today. So we're very, very grateful to have Mad Gaze enabling us to have these conversations. It is because of our sponsors that we're able to continue to host this type of content. So very large thank you to Mad Gaze. But that's enough from me. Today, we do have an incredible set of panelists here today, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So let's go ahead. We're beginning first off with Richard Hess, who's Productions and Sales Manager of Zapbox at Zapper. Richard, tell us a little bit more about your work and what you do.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, as you said, my name is Richard Hess. I'm with Zapper. Just newly joined the Zapper team a few weeks ago. So I'm in charge of the sales and product for Zapbox, which is the most affordable 6 degree of freedom mixed reality headset on the market. Before I joined Zapper, I spent the past 6 years working for Nestle in charge of the global AR/VR team based in Barcelona. So yeah, excited to be here and happy to talk about Zapbox and where it fits in the consumer smart glasses landscape.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Richard. Now let's go ahead and hear about your work. Joined by Kiran Sinha, founder and CEO of Volumix, which has been doing epic work in mobile AR.
Hi, thank you for that introduction. I'm Kiran Sinha. I'm the founder and CEO of Volumix. At Volumix, we focus on empowering brands to create compelling AR content across both e-commerce and entertainment. Our background has really been in gaming and gaming technology. So our product is functionally an AR engine with applications across different aspects of entertainment and now most recently e-commerce. We, as our first application built on top of our engine, we built it in-house, and that was Five Nights at Freddy's AR Special Delivery. It has been a mass consumer title running off of the app stores today. In the last year and a half or so, it's organically done about over 18 million downloads and has been and it's hit the top of the charts several times. And so we've really been focused primarily on how do we develop AR on hardware today that is able to resonate with a mass consumer audience. And that's what our technology and our content is really focused about.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Excited to learn more. Also joined with Jason Mcdowell, creator and host of the AR Show and VP of Product at Estendo Technologies.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. My name is Jason. Some of you may have heard my voice. I host this podcast called the AR Show. I had the great pleasure of interviewing luminaries such as Kieran, also Casper at Zappar, and many other folks across the industry over the last couple of years. And so I take great pleasure in having the opportunity to pick the brains of these really amazing thought leaders throughout the industry. But on the side, I also work at a hybrid semiconductor technology company that is focused initially and primarily on developing micro LED based micro displays for use in AR glasses. So I have a hardware bent to some of the interviews that I do on the podcast, in part because of my own attempt to truly understand and learn how and when the smart glass side of the set of technologies necessary to enable smart glasses are really going to be available and ready for companies like the Apples and Facebooks of the world to bring these things forward into our faces, into our pockets.
Awesome. Excited for that as well. And you definitely have the podcast voice. It's a very much pleasure to listen to. And last but not least, joined by Chelsea Mew, brand director at MadGaze. Tell us a bit about your work.
Thanks for introduction. So I'm Chelsea Mew. I'm the brand director of McDowell. So we are an augmented reality smart glasses company. We're based in Hong Kong, and we also have an office in China. So we're not only making the hardware itself, we're also building software as well. And we're aiming to build an ecosystem for the AR smart glasses, because we truly believe that without the ecosystem, it won't be sustainable. So this is what we're working on. And at the same time, like recently, like NFT is really hot topic. We are building a team right now and getting into this area because we want to build a metaverse. This is something which is related to the topic we're covering today. So would love to discuss further with the panel today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. Don't want to hold off anymore. For those, just as we are talking, if any panelists, if any participants have any questions, please do go ahead and pop those in the chat. I'll save those and we'll address them at the end, but it just gives us a way to kind of keep those questions going. Of course, panelists, if you want to jump in and have a vibrant conversation in there during the event itself, you're welcome to do so as well. So Kieran, let's start with you. So Volumix is the creator of some of the most popular AR games on the market. I've been played Five Nights at Freddy's myself, been adequately terrified. But I'd love to see sort of your opinion on how has AR changed mobile gaming, and how do you envision that next step as we start looking at smart glasses for mobile gaming or smart glasses for AR games?
Sure. I think for us, it's not just about how it's transformed gaming, it's more about how it's transformed storytelling. If you think about gaming as this evolution of storytelling, and initially everything being incredibly linear, I mean, from cave drawings to storybooks to TV, it's a very linear approach to content. And gaming, I think, has been so freeing in changing that to a non-linear structure. And what AR, I think, has done is actually take that paradigm one step further. We've gone from not just you having choices inside of a digital world, but you being the protagonist. And I think that's a really key part of how we've been able to design successful consumer AR experiences, is really focusing around the fact that you are the character, you are the main component. And that's true, I think, across consumer AR. In our game, certainly you're the one being attacked and trying to save yourself in this horror universe come to life, but also, in different entertainment experiences that we're working on with third parties, I can't speak too much to it, but there's still a sense of you're the one in it who has the power. We're currently collaborating with Disney, and there are announcements coming forward in that soon. And I think that's been a key element to it, is this, not just this world come to life, but that you are the core of it, you yourself in the real world. And even in e-commerce, it's really centered around this idea of, well, it's great to see a brand experience in the 2D world or on someone else, but there's something about it being connected with you that I think creates such a strong connection with any brand or any fantasy world out there. And so I think that's really essential. And I think the second has to do with form factor. And this is certainly something that changes as we move into glasses, is for us designing, really thinking about how to use the mobile phone in a way that connects, I think, mentally with the consumer, or any camera, whether that's phone or internet for us. Something that is as frictionless as possible, something that intellectually makes sense. With Five Nights at Freddy's, we did a lot of thought around how are we asking someone to hold up their phone for potentially longer periods of time when the common knowledge at the time was that people don't really hold up their phones much, and that was a huge obstacle to overcome, and you needed to design around that. We embraced it very heavily, thinking about the phone as a tool, as a kind of way, in our case, a flashlight, in other cases, a magic wand or something to look around and really see the world in a different light. And I think when the consumer understands at a psychological level why they are doing something, the effort required and that friction disappears, and you can actually have just focus on the experience. I think a lot of AR today is hampered by it feeling like a technology and not like an experience. And I think great technology is completely invisible. And that's really how we've tried to focus our experience and our user experiences. And I think when we have glasses, a component of that is solved for us. You're automatically in that world and in that experience. You remove that setup friction, which I think is very critical. And you certainly have that egocentricity. It will be, I think for me on smartphones, there's a lot of potential with smart glasses. I think there will be even more for third-party outward-facing gaming, which is really what we focus on compared to a lot of the AR market is focused on selfie-facing filters and the like. And so that's something that we're really looking forward to glasses for. However, I think it has to be done in a way that actually solves the problem of being frictionless. When you have something that's heavy or jarring, it's functionally a new form of friction we've introduced into the equation. We're asking for a new behavior. And so we think very, very heavily around how to design and develop technology that enables the user to have seamless experiences where you really don't have any sense of the technology.
Thank you. No, that I think is a great foundation. Also a great way to pivot to the hardware side. So, Richard, Zapbox recently had an incredibly successful Kickstarter with the Zapbox. And this is, again, talking about sort of the friction behind that technology, similar to what Kieran was talking about. Why was it so popular, and why were people so excited for this? And sort of how are you addressing that concept of friction and making it as accessible as possible?
Thanks to that. Yeah, we had a great Kickstarter campaign and we raised beyond our goal with over 1,000 backers. But I think the reason why people are excited for Zapbox, and just to give a view of what Zapbox is it's essentially leverages the smartphone to offer a mixed reality experience akin to, say, HoloLens or Magic Leap. Now, it's not as high fidelity as those, but it's still something where people can get in quite quickly using their smartphone and have that type of experience through a headset or a head-mounted device. It utilizes our proprietary computer technology that we have at Zapper. To kind of enable all that. And so everything from D3 tracking to world tracking and everything that comes with the Zapper's technology and platform. It is actually the third iteration. So the first two iterations were more based on cardboard, akin to, say, a Google Cardboard. And we're now kind of upgraded that to something that's more plastic and has plastic molding. So it comes with I would say, much more professional type of experience. We also, in this iteration, we have two controllers that before were tracked using just the computer vision. We've now added some hardware inside those controllers and added some Bluetooth connectivity. So it really provides a fluid experience and helps with the motion and tracking for the mixed reality experience itself. I think, to underline why people are excited, the affordability is definitely a key factor. So for the Kickstarter campaign, we were having headsets backed at $40. So just $40 and using the kind of technology or hardware that they already have, the camera within the smartphone itself, they can get right into that mixed reality kind of environment. And looking at where camera tech has gone now, being able to do 60 degrees of freedom using cameras that are now natively more and more have 60 frames per second, it really does have it's really something that is quite tangible and allows you to get into that experience quite well. I think as well, out of the box, we'll have multi-user experiences, so up to 4 people can be within that same, be kind of either playing or gaming or utilizing it as a tool right out of the box. So I think that kind of hits all the key points there, is that something that, much quicker to get into, much easier to afford, and leveraging the technology that we already have.
Awesome. No, affordability definitely key. I can imagine, especially with so many devices coming on the market, it's a lot easier to throw down sub 100 than spend $1,500 or $2,000 on a super high end headset. But yeah, no, thank you for that, especially when we're talking about consumer markets. So Jason, in addition, sort of you've, as the host of the AR show, you've interviewed many people in the AR space. Are there any other trends that you're noticing in the smart glasses space that you'd like to touch on, or anything else that you'd like to add to?
Yeah, one of the great things, one of the great joys I have within the podcast is it's incredibly broad. Everything from content within, on the mobile app side to deep in the weeds, infrastructure components on the software side, or deep in the weeds, how do photons flow through various semiconductor type materials and ultimately end in our eyes, all the rest. Maybe I'll give you just a quick rundown of some of the key points over the last couple of interviews I've done, and I'll try to bring it back and summarize it very quickly. This week's interview was with Guido Grote from LuxXL. LuxXL is an optics technology company, and what they're trying to solve is prescription around waveguides. So waveguides is a technology to get that light from the display, wherever it's sitting around your eyes, through that lens into your eye while still allowing you to see the outside world. And one of the big challenges that we think about within the hardware space is, well, how do we accommodate all the people like me and the majority of the population that requires prescriptive eyewear to see? And adding prescription within kind of this very complex bit of technology has been a really difficult challenge. Nobody's really kind of come up with a really good solution. But LuxXL is a really great 3D printing technology they talk about there. That's an example. FISNA, last episode was with Paul Powers from FISNA. One of the big challenges that we think about as we talk about the coming age of consumer AR, certainly we have to have hardware that feels good on our face, that we feel socially comfortable wearing, that provides a good visual experience. But beyond that, it has to be able to deliver context. It has to be able to understand enough about what's happening in our lives and what's happening around us in order to deliver a good experience. And companies like Volumix do a great job of that understanding within the context of the experiences they're creating. But as we think about a more generic understanding of the real world, a company like FISNA has come up with a way of understanding or teaching computers how to understand 3D in a way that they haven't before, to be able to directly search and interpret 3D in a new sort of way based on their algorithms they created. Super interesting company. Susan Cummings at Tiny Rebel, similar to Volumix, is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with mobile AR, thinking about AR first experiences from a different sort of lens than what Volumix is doing. And on and on. There's, we kind of talk a lot about, we kind of see recently a lot of continued enthusiasm for the imminent age of consumer smart glasses. But it's been imminent for a long time now. It's always kind of about 3 years out. And in some ways, I feel like it's still about 3 years out, although Chelsea's going to tell us about Mad Gaze's latest. And we've seen some other products from other companies that feel like they're on the verge. And these products, I think, are helping us to appreciate what's possible, kind of pointing the direction to where we're going. Zapbox is another great transition sort of device that helps us begin to experiment, and it's much more accessible. So we kind of get to a sense to understand how it's going to play out, what are the sort of experiences we can create on top of these things. But I still feel like we're on the verge and not quite there.
Well, that is a fantastic way to transition. So Chelsea, it's heat's on. So many consumer smart glass or many smart glasses companies are focused on enterprise, but Mad Gaze has a specific target on consumers. So when you look at this market, are you seeing a few years out, or what makes you feel that consumers are ready now? And what are you doing at Mad Gaze to help that future come to pass?
Actually, we didn't because we didn't start the company because we think that the market is ready, but we started the company in 2013, back in 2013. So at that time, Google Glass actually introduced their product to the consumer market, but eventually, because due to like lack of contents and also like autonomy and set of difficulties they have encountered. So therefore, it didn't went as well as they planned. But we think that is actually a really good beginning because a big company, they stepped up to start introducing this kind of products to the general public, which we think that is the right timing to start working on this kind of product. So in the first 3 years, we work on only R&D, and then we first launched our products in 2017. So at the time, I remember we were still launching like monocular glasses instead of like the recent ones, which is binocular and more portable ones. So we are trying to like create better experience by collecting more and more feedbacks from the consumers and also the end users right from the beginning. So this actually helps us to further develop the product and improve the user experience, and also to grow the community and get more contents onto this kind of devices. So I think this is the importance of like, even if it's not there yet, we have to start working on it.
Well, thank you for that. And I do have a video here that we have of your most recent product, which I'm going to go ahead and upload now. But yeah, no, thank you for sharing it. Exciting to see this. And yeah, so we'll play it so everyone gets a little bit of a taste of what MadGaze vision is for consumer smart glasses.
Sit on that disturbing.
Well, there was certainly a lot to unpack in there. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what we just saw and what that means for MadGaze's vision for consumer smart glasses.
So the video we've just showed just now is actually the latest product we are going to like officially launch really soon. So we have already announced the launch at the AWE Asia like a few weeks ago. So the product you see is we have made quite a lot of efforts on the design and also the user experience wise. We are trying to make it more compatible to different IoT devices, because we want to like first get it introduced to the consumers to make it like easy to accept and easy to adopt. So this is the first thing. And also in the video, you can see that there are various ways to control the device. You can see that it's a plug and play on the phone. So you can like use the phone as a laser pointer. You can tap on the screen, and also you can have hands-free experience, or even like pair with like Bluetooth like controllers, or even like smartwatches. and control it with like simple clicks and stuff. So this is the idea of like getting into deeper, especially when like the 7 layers of metaverse is actually like, like smart glasses is actually something that you need extensive experience to be offered to the consumers. It's not only limited to the smart glass itself and also the content, but also the overall user experience. This is something we want to bring you.
Awesome. Yeah, very much looking forward to it. And I wasn't at Asia myself, but very excited to get my hands on one to try it out. But let's come back. So obviously getting consumers ready for smart glasses is in some part going to involve teaching the consumers about AR. So Kieran, in your experience getting people excited about games, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face in teaching people how to interact with AR? Or what are some of the things that you're tapping in, and rather, what are some of the things or tricks that you're learning to get them able to interact with it in new ways? And how do you think that's going to play out as we need to sort of train people how to interact eventually with consumer smart glasses?
I think in many ways, I think about it as almost the opposite of what you just asked.
Okay.
Like, so I don't think it's a question of, no consumer really is out there saying, I'm interested in learning about AR, or let me go try this new technology. I think it boils back to what I said previously. It's about the experience and what they're getting. And so one of the things I think a lot about in the mobile ecosystem that I think will also carry forward as we think about smart glasses is, what are you cannibalizing? Like, what is the comp here? The reality of a mobile AR game is you are competing against every mobile game in the market, not every AR game in the market. And that's really where when a user, I would guess a huge chunk of the people playing our game do not even realize that what they're doing is AR, or could identify that in some ways. It certainly is. It's an AR required game, which is quite different than what you see in like a Pokemon Go or a Harry Potter game. But it's still something consumers are really enjoying and coming back to. And we have millions of monthly active users because they enjoy the experience. It's an experience that holds up against other games in the mobile category. And I think when we think about what happens as we get into consumer glasses, it's a question of what are the other activities that you're cannibalizing, both by putting on the glasses. Are we talking about a device that's really intended to replace the mobile phone, and you're thinking about developing games for it as a mobile game where you're doing these quick snippets, here and there as you're out about in the world? Or we're thinking about this almost like a Switch, where it is a dedicated device that people are using in certain settings. And both, there are serious competitions for the mobile use case. We're talking about the comparison of, why can I not use my mobile phone? That's going to be the fallback, right? And in the other situation where it becomes almost like what the Quest is today, there's a question of what is the market size for that? And if you are talking about a dedicated device at home, how does it compare against every gaming console, VR console, mobile device out there? Those are, I think, the really difficult questions to figure out, and that we need to see how those devices land and what the use cases are in order to determine the right type of content. We're talking about games where you're sitting at home and that's the main use case. That's going to look and feel very different than the cadence and the kind of playtime and structure of something that's replacing a mobile device. And I think that will have a huge bearing on the type of content we see. And part of that will also, I think, be determined by the timeline. We see this again a little bit in the world of, VR headsets, where it's a question at first, and a lot of these challenges look like they're being answered by people on this panel, which is truly amazing. Is, where's the technology? Is it good enough to provide the level of experience consumers need? Is it done in a form factor that consumers will accept? And is it done at the price point? So it's all the kind of accessibility tech component. Then there's actually getting people to do it, which is, I think, another challenging moment. There are billions of dollars spent removing glasses from our face. What is the real value that they see? Again, not just compared to what the future looks like, but what the present looks like. What is the value that you can't get on your phone that you're getting on this that's so extreme that people want to put on the glasses? And then once there's mass consumer adoption, then we're talking about, is it worth it as a developer to create content for that? So I actually think there are like 2 or 3 layers that have to happen before we can even see what a truly compelling mass market game would look like on a device. And I think a lot of that will be determined by the consumer, not the companies, on how and when they're using these devices.
Yeah, that's some terrific advice. I mean, listening to what the consumer wants and needs and meeting them there is definitely going to be, I mean, in some parts, creating quite a significant hurdle that companies like Mad Gaze will have to overcome. But we're there for you, so that's good. So Richard, I mean, as Zapper looks to make that transition a little bit more easy by using a headset that transitions first in collaboration with a mobile phone, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing as you launch Zapbox, as you either from the technical side or the adoption side, as you seem to have created a solution that is on the way to becoming sort of a full set of smart glasses?
Sure. So I would say part of the mission that we have at Zapper is to democratize augmented reality for everyone. So therefore, when we look at leveraging the smartphone, it's really under that understanding that we're trying to make it as available to as many people as possible. And using the smartphone allows us to do that. You also take, you look at some of the other devices in the XR industry. You take standalone VR devices, for instance. Sometimes you don't find them in all the markets or in different countries. You take like Oculus, and then you look at countries like in Latin America or South America. It's quite hard to sometimes get those type of devices from both a consumer or enterprise standpoint. Certainly, the challenges I think of looking at it from a smartphone perspective is because you're developing an iOS or Android, you're kind of beholden sometimes to say if there's a new iOS update, are things going to break? We'll have to adapt or change for that. When you're looking at dedicated Android devices for say standalone VR, they have a little bit more wiggle room to kind of own the destiny of that. On the other end of the spectrum, when you are looking at trying to deploy it on as many Android devices as possible and all the different models and the fragmentation there, that can be quite a challenge to find a solution that's one size fits all. So, those are some of the challenges I think that, using the smartphone for that, it brings quite a number of advantages because you get to, reach as many people as you can with the ubiquity of majority of people have that type of device. But yeah, there are some kind of growing pains with that in terms of continuously updating that ecosystem and making it so the fidelity of the experience you're trying to give and the mixed reality can work on those type of devices. One other thing I would say is when you're looking at 6 degrees of freedom and being able to kind of move around those type of experiences, being able to do that with one camera on the phone, where it's a head-mounted device, that can be quite challenging. There's a lot of computer vision and things on the software side that we need to do in order to get that to a certain level. And if you take a phone, say 5-6 years ago, that doesn't have as strong of a camera, that could be possibly a challenge. So I think in terms of that kind of shift, and as phones get better, and we're able to take advantage of that, that will allow more ubiquity for using something like Zapbox to kind of reach that market. But if we see similar trends, if you look at say the standalone VR, and you look at what are the top players, the Oculuses, the HTCs, the Picos, that kind of consolidation potentially could happen on the AR consumer glasses side as well. I still think it's a bit open-ended, and it's still kind of a race to get there. There's no true kind of market leaders, although there are some really interesting ones, including Mad Gaze and Unreal and some of these other ones that are coming into place. But that's something to keep an eye on and watch out for.
No, that's fantastic and very interesting. I didn't even think about the camera aspect, but it's true. The camera between different phones would make a radically different experience. It almost makes me wonder if mobile devices in the future, they'll start thinking about AR experiences. I mean, I know Apple has already mentioned on multiple fronts that they're working on their own AR devices, and what that might mean for their mobile phone development is with the introduction of everything from LiDAR to other forms of technology could be very interesting to watch and could very easily impact a future Zapbox. So super cool there. But let's go to the full-on smart glasses. So Chelsea, I mean, so we see the intermediary solution. We see what Kieran's talking about in terms of experience must come first. How are you thinking about these challenges at Mad Gaze, both in terms of affordability mentioned by Rich and the quality of the experience mentioned by Kieran, as I am sure both of these are front and center in your development?
First of all, I think how to like ensure a good to bring good user experience to the users is that we need to continuously working on the software side to compensate part of the like the downside of the like hardware itself, because there are still limitations when you want to make the smart glasses smaller, more compact. It has more limitations, as like Richard just mentioned, that like cameras, it has limitations, and eventually it won't bring you to the ideal experience in terms of like spatial mapping and stuff. So that will require you a lot of effort on like the software side, especially on computer vision, like how do you optimize the overall experience and to make it like more smooth and etc. and more like precise, I would say, like more precise in terms of like recognizing the world and the objects. So these are actually the challenges we're facing, and that's why we keep looking for like talents to build the algorithm, and also to enhance the overall experience. And also at the same time, other than the user experience itself, I think most importantly is that like the compatibility of the device. If it's not compatible to a lot of like different IoTs, including of course mobile phone itself, otherwise they will not be like very feasible for the consumers to adopt this kind of technology, because when there's no SDK or stuff, like developers tend not to like start developing contents based on your device. So this is why we're also developing the whole community at the same time. Like we need to like get everything ready and like hassle-free to the developers. And also at the same time, we're trying to build a platform which is like 100% code-free platform, which allows users with no coding background, no knowledge on that area, they can also contribute and build the contents based on on that platform. So this is something which brings new experience to like non-programmers at the same time. And I think this is like relatively important as well, because it can't be only limited to like insiders, but also we need to bring it and introduce it to the other consumers.
Wow. So, okay. So it seems like you're working on quite a few things to break down these challenges, from manufacturing your own content, which means you're functionally both doing the developer job and the hardware job. So that's definitely challenging for sure. But also I love this idea of a user generated content being code free. I mean, that took a long time for websites to become code free, to get to drag and drop. And I believe mobile apps are just more or less getting there now. So if we can skip right to it, so that users can create content for smart glasses, I mean, that would be fantastic. So I imagine that is also quite challenging to develop for sure. Well, thank you there. And Jason, as you've mentioned, Metaverse, it's quite popular now, but not quite your favorite term or concept. Based on sort of what we're hearing today from AR gaming and talking about consumer smart glasses, or first the mobile approach to smart glasses that Zapper's taking, or the hardware developed version that MadGaze is taking, sort of where do you feel the Metaverse fits into this, and how do you see that going forward?
I'm happy to talk about my complete confusion about the word metaverse. But before I wanted to comment on a couple of things I just heard from my fellow panelists. Kieran talked a little bit about the challenge, the reality that we live in today, which is we have these amazing smartphones, the diverse to some extent, right? Especially the Android world. And there's a lot of constraints within mobile, but it is mass market hardware device, and you can build some amazing experiences that make sense for how we use those devices today. And the big question is, how do we imagine today that we're going to use smart glasses in the future? Because it's not directly plug and play. Whatever works today on mobile AR is going to automatically work in smart glasses. It's definitely not the case. And the other fundamental question she asked, which is a really important one, which every startup should ask about anything that they think they're going to be creating, is why the heck wouldn't they just use the thing they're already using? Why is this new thing actually be meaningfully different and better? And along those lines, the anticipation around smart glasses is the one thing that there's a couple of things they can do potentially better than the smartphones that we have today. One of them is that you don't have to hold it in your hand to use it effectively. So being hands-free, heads up, has the potential to be useful. And the other is that one of the things that mobile phones gave us, despite a poor term for the word, going on to this definition, we'll come back to metaverse in a second. Mobile phone is not a good term for the thing that we use today. I think Microsoft actually had it right in the 90s, calling it a pocket personal computer. It's a more accurate description of what it is today that we occasionally use for audio only conversations. But anyway, this device was useful because it was mobile. It was in our pocket all the time. We had access to. It was a worse keyboard. It was a much smaller screen, much worse bandwidth, much more constrained computing device. But it was useful because it was always with us and allowed us to access information or access content, entertainment more quickly in more places than we could before. And I think that the thing that smart glasses will allow for us is the potential to reduce that time from intention to action even further. This isn't all the time everywhere, but there are definitely some scenarios, especially it's easier to imagine them within the enterprise workforce today where you're using your hands to do another job, to be able to not only have heads-up hands-free access, but also to get to that information, to get to that decision, to get to that piece of content you need to make forward progress in whatever you're working on much more quickly. So it's this time from intention to action, I think, has the potential, along with being heads-up hands-free. There's two other things I really want to comment on. One of them is that Rich commented on affordability, and Chelsea commented on compatibility. I think these two terms are super important as we think about the evolution of the hardware itself. In order for these things to be mass market devices, the $3,000 Microsoft HoloLenses or the many $1,000 Vario, amazing VR headsets that we have out there, these are incredibly capable devices that do amazing things, but they're not consumer grade pricing. The fact that we decided that consumer grade pricing is $1,000 for a high-end smartphone is by itself pretty amazing. But I think that smart glasses and even kind of the lower end Android phones needs to be at a much lower price point for them to be viable. Affordability is key. Compatibility. These glasses will not exist on their own. I don't think anytime soon that they're going to replace a mobile phone. They have to be compatible at least with the mobile phones around us, if not with many of the other devices, like Chelsea's commentary about kind of the IoT devices in our lives. They have to be compatible with these things. I think that makes a lot of sense. The third one that I would add to that, affordability, compatibility, is wearability. That this march that we all have towards finding acceptable smart glasses is having them be truly wearable, something that we physically feel comfortable wearing, but also socially feel comfortable wearing, while delivering enough functionality that they're useful. Back to Kieran's point. Anyway.
That was fantastic. I want to make sure we have time for questions at the end. So we'll save your metaverse response. Interested to hear that for your next question. But that was great summation. Really appreciate that. Richard, so the next few questions, I really want to take things looking forward. So each of you are doing incredible work now, and I want us to start projecting, because all of us seem to be in agreement that consumer glasses are still more or less something that we're working on now, but aren't quite yet a reality, or an emerging reality at least. So Richard, where is Zapbox going in the future? I mean, you had a very successful Kickstarter. You've got essential prototypes that are being delivered. Is it to pivot to creating your own hardware? Are you going to be coming out with another generation of Zapbox? And what have you learned that's going to help you take this to the next step?
For sure, what's kind of top of mind right now is to just the Kickstarter community that backed us and supported it and getting those devices there. But I think part of what we're looking at in Zapper is knowing this is the third iteration, really kind of turning this into something that had a foundation as a Kickstarter project, but moving towards more of a product and having that roadmap defined, new features added, listening to the community, similar to I would say actually how Oculus almost started, right? So it started as a crowdsourced device, and then eventually was bought. Not saying we're looking to get bought out, but eventually turned into a product that was quite important and part of the strategy. So we see it a similar way at Zapper. When I look towards the horizon, horizon's quite a funny word at the moment, considering Facebook looking to rebrand their metaverse and calling some of their products Horizon. But yeah, as we look towards that, I agree with what my colleagues in the panel have said, we're not quite mass market yet. Although there's a lot of great work, we're still getting there. I think when I look at something like Zapbox and looking at some of these other devices coming to market and the price points, I think what we're also showing is the art of what's possible. And this community and people within XR have known for a while, what is possible. You even go back towards something like the first HoloLens. It's still quite impressive, and it's only gotten better from there. But it's not a general, I'd say, consensus, or people really understand, I think, to the everyday lay person, what is possible within augmented reality, mixed reality. And there's going to be these key little points where, this penetration where people may not even recognize that's augmented reality. You take, the selfie filters or even product visualization that you get now out of the box for something like Google search, or you see a lot of e-commerce. That is augmented reality, and that's something that people are going to start connect the dots on. So when I look towards Zapbox too, I see what Google Cardboard did for VR and really demystifying that, and we're hoping that for mixed reality, Zapbox can do something there. But if you look at all the big players, the top tech companies from Apple to Facebook to Google, have Tim Cook saying last month he's the #1 AR fan. If you're a brand or a company that has a consumer market, I think at the moment you'd be crazy not to start investing, preparing for this reality that, whether it's the metaverse as the buzz term now, or it's just XR in general. There's too much investment, I think, and too much momentum where eventually this is going to play a role in our everyday lives. So, I also think, we are talking about a consumer focus, but when you look at the last, you could say the last computing or the current computing platform being the mobile device, and if AR, VR, XR is going to be that next computing platform, that exponential growth happened not only when it hit consumers, but was also used in the workplace and businesses and enterprise as well. And once we start to get to that place with something like consumer smart glasses, then I think that's only going to create that exponential growth. We're already kind of seeing it in VR, where people, that started off very consumer or gaming focused, and then you look at companies now. I think I think it was even this week where Accenture says they bought 60,000 VR headsets. You have these big companies that are making plays into that to use that as a platform for learning, development, training, things like that. I think that's when it's truly going to hit this point, where it's going to be more ubiquitous and something that everyone's going to want to have and need to have.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to each subsequent iteration of Zapbox, and yeah, very excited to see where that technology can go. Chelsea, when you are, it kind of seems a bit early to be asking about what comes next for MadGaze, particularly with launching your most recent product, but where do you see that product going? And maybe tell us a little bit about sort of how you envision a roadmap as MadGaze becomes or looks to become one of the earliest consumer smart glasses companies over the next, say, 2, 3, 4 years. Maybe that helps illustrate what's coming in 3 years, as Jason mentioned.
The video just shown is actually showing the latest product, which is called Wave. So we're using the hybrid waveguide, introducing the hybrid waveguide smart glasses to the market, which is more like compact and also like more affordable in terms of like the optical displays, because like previously, we have also launched other smart glasses which cost around like few $100. So this one is around like $300 on Kickstarter, which will be launching soon. So I think this is something I want to bring to market. And the device itself is actually like with an improved optical technology, which shares a similarity with the waveguide, but not, even though it's not exactly the same, but we find progress on making a more affordable version of it. So this is the benefit of getting using the Wave wave smart glasses for getting a mixed reality experience. So in terms of like the roadmap of the company, I would say in 2 to 3 years time, we're actually planning to build, to get dive into the metaverse, even though like Jason just like earlier he mentioned that he somehow he doesn't really agree or doesn't really like the term of it, but we are like investing more and more resources on building that, because we're planning to like allow users to get in, to do to buy NFTs and also to sell at the same time on the ecosystem and on our platform. So which allows the users to be more engaged and to really experience the AR, the benefit of AR and also the metaverse of it. So this is what we are trying to bring to the consumers. And at the same time, I mean, like 5G is getting more mature, right? And also like NFT and blockchains are getting mature and also is getting big. So I think is time for like other technologies to also step up to help developing the metaverse and also to bring introduce new technologies and also new services to the end consumers.
Well, I do think, Jason, got to give you a chance to respond. So in all the people you've spoken to, I mean, the metaverse is Facebook's new favorite buzzword all over the media. Everything from VR to AR to smart glasses to 360 images. What is the metaverse in your opinion, or how are you seeing it sort of consolidated? And what does it really mean for us over the next couple of years? You mentioned 3 years a couple of times. So let's say 3 years.
Well, 3 years is the magical. It's just far enough away that we can't quite define it, but we feel like it's close. And metaverse, of course, has been around for a long time as a term, a couple of decades, right? Neil Stephenson invented that word as part of his story. He's trying to imagine this. What is life like after we have this 2D web? What does it mean like in this 3D sort of world? But I think that the reemergence of the term, I was dreaming over the weekend, thinking about this over the weekend a little bit. I was wondering as I was watching some Marvel movie, whether some Facebook marketing exec was watching Marvel also and said, hey, multiverse, that's a really cool term. We need some of our own version to rebrand all of AR and VR under some new term that can also incorporate anything else related to 3D. I find the term so amorphous, and it has like this momentum to it. It's like this cartoon snowball that kind of is rolling down the hill and expands. Anything that it touches is now part of the metaverse. Oh, you work in content. Oh, you're working on the metaverse now. And so it gets to the point where it means so much that it means nothing. And I think that's part of my hesitation with it, is that it kind of is the more hype that it gains, the less useful it becomes. But maybe it is related to this idea of this expansive, extensible 3D virtual world, which is not exactly what AR is about. AR is about being here in this world. And maybe we'll figure out ways to enhance this world to be more magical in some fun and interesting ways. But is that, I don't know what that means in practice and how it's tied to this other extensible 3D world, other world thing. But maybe it's this notion of the filters and stuff on the world. I honestly don't know what the term means. And to the extent that people are excited and they want to read articles and tune in to learn more about what is happening in AR and VR and the emergence of these massively multiplayer online 3D games, great. But for those that are inside the industry and we're actually trying to make progress on delivering useful or amazing things to people, I find the term to be not so useful.
Yeah, I think that was very much what's on the mind of many people in the industry. I think you said it very concisely. But yeah, hopefully it does bring more attention to all of the great work that everyone in the industry is doing. Finally, before we open up to general questions, so Kieran, I want to get your a sort of opinion here. There was a couple articles about how Niantic, for example, is experimenting with HoloLens for Pokemon Go. Not yet something that's publicly available, but as you think about your roadmap, creating sort of massively popular AR games, are you looking at other mediums? Are you thinking, is it something you're experimenting with now? Is it something in your immediate future, or are you still sort of waiting and seeing?
To be perfectly honest, it's not something I see us focusing on in terms of consumer-facing content in the upcoming years, because for us, the ethos and really what we focus on, the mission of Volumix, is to deliver content that it's at the intersection of the digital and physical worlds for the mass market consumer. And I don't think we're going to be there in the next 3 years. But I think both Jason and Richard sort of touched on this idea of the art of the possible, and that content will look very different with the glasses even compared to a mobile device. So that is something that we look at internally and start to experiment with. We have sort of, I think, two different things that will change as we move content towards a smart glasses sort of device. I think one is all content today is created in a completely controlled world, whether that's for gaming, you're building an app, you're building a website, anything. All content is built with the idea that you know and previously know and understand the world around you. And that is not the case as we move towards a glasses-based environment where it's going to be things that you're learning on the go. And so the type of content that will be created, I think, will look and feel very different. I would be surprised if a lot of ports from existing mobile games work particularly well in a smart glasses scenario. So I think there's that experimentation with the art of the possible, probably a lot more reliance on AI built into games, on procedural generation. There are elements like that that I think will really actually experience a birth of a new type of content. And I think Volumix, in terms of where we sit with our engine, is very much about, can we create an avenue for brands and existing content to work in an engine that they're somewhat familiar with, but actually solves that problem for them. So from that perspective, we're very, very interested. And it's something we look at very closely. Is I think there's going to be fundamentally a new sort of engine, not Unreal or Unity, but something that has to power this very new type of content and this new type of world. And I think to the second point, this idea of ubiquity of the glasses, I think is very interesting as well. I think Jason hit on this earlier, of this idea of minimizing the amount of time and access to information and making that as broad as possible, which is what we get with glasses. I think that's dead on the money. That is what we get with glasses. And I think that actually will lend itself to different types of contents, play experiences, session times than what we're used to. And I think that will actually cause the other real separation in what we see with existing platforms today. And so we really look at glasses as forward-facing. How can we do it to better improve the engine that we're building for, the digital physical world, metaverse, or whatever it is that we're going to call it today, to keep it sexy. So that's really, I think, where we as a company focus on, is building that bridge for brands to move from how all content has been created throughout all of history, and certainly in every format that we know today, and being able to translate that to something that is, I think, wholly new.
Awesome. And I think that's a great way to sort of end up our existing questions. Now, I would like to invite all participants, if you do have questions, please go ahead and throw them into the chat, and we'll do our very best to answer these in the next few minutes. We're already at time, but we'll try to hold everyone here for just a little bit longer. First question is, as a developer in the US, how can someone get access to the MadGaze headset ASAP? So Chelsea, that's you.
Yeah, I've actually replied him directly. You can actually visit our website, and we will announce the launch on Kickstarter really soon. So we're targeting the delivery in February and to March next year. So which will be really soon. Will be, as we have already started the production already. Yeah.
Awesome. While we're on it, there was a quick question about field of view. So what is the field of view of the smart glasses?
The field of view is 40 degrees, which will be similar to the Veda we've launched before, but with a different optical display. So which will be relatively thinner, and also is more transparent, better transparency on the display itself.
Another sort of bigger question here. So talking about partial adoption or acceptance of casual wearable glasses. So talking about Snapchat spectacles of limited success, Ray-Bans, stories, etc. And of course, more recently, we've seen a couple other coming out. How would you position AR glasses to build on or compete with entry-level acceptance that exists today, particularly considering upcoming heavyweights like Apple?
I'll take a stab.
Yeah, go for it.
So spectacles, as they are in the market today, and the stuff from Facebook, there's no display in that. These are just head-worn cameras. They in some ways fly directly in the face of the thing that people objected to Google Glass with, which was the cameras in your face. Like, our biggest fear as humans is being on front of, being on a stage stage fright, right? And being embarrassed and being rejected by the group, right? This sort of being an outcast. And I think this camera on our face or somebody else's face pointing at you, recording for all eternity, every blunder, mistake that you do in that moment is this underlying fear, this, getting cast out from our tribe. That's the fear that we have. And these two companies have decided to wade directly in that direction, because that's the accessible bit of technology they can put in your face right now and have it functional, because the display is quite hard. And I think that Snap has a much easier time of it than Facebook, just because of brand reputation and how people associate trust with those brands. But going forward, Apple's a long ways, in my opinion, still from releasing AR glasses. The rumored product that's coming up next is not going to be the device that you wear while walking down the street. That's going to be a device, perhaps, that you wear in your living room. But that aside, the opportunities in the early days for positioning, I think, are going to be pretty narrow use case oriented in the early days. Maybe it's going to be something that's just dedicated to gaming, right? Niantic's talked about some glasses, the hardware stuff that they're experimenting with in partnership with Qualcomm. There's some stuff around sports in that promo video that Chelsea showed. There's this personal trainer sort of use case. I think that's a wonderful, sort of use case. And there's already some stuff around sports. There's going to be a handful of point-oriented glasses that solve a very specific and narrow use case that I think will be the sort of things that find true adoption. I'm not saying mass scale adoption, but some level of adoption. The current level of adoption is, barely pre-alpha sorts of adoption of these sorts of devices. It's, not measured in hundreds of thousands for any one of these things.
I agree with absolutely everything that Jason said. I think the one thing also when we compare these, Google Glass and flying in the face of what we actually see happening today with spectacles and with the Ray-Ban collaboration and Facebook is, I think the impact of timing here is incredibly relevant. We're talking about the difference between 2014, 2013, and today. This fear of, oh my God, someone's recording me all the time, that exists in today's ecosystem, whether it's someone holding up their phone and snapping or Instagramming or TikToking your entire world around you at any given time, or whether it's on your face. And so I think the headspace of the consumer has actually shifted in a really important way in the past several years from I'm scared of the camera, 2014, it was still sort of weird to selfie and, socially awkward, compared to where we are today, where I think the fear is actually less on, being recorded necessarily, and it becomes almost more of a utility for consumers, where it's like, oh, well, now I don't need to hold up my phone to do this action that I would already be doing and that people around me are sort of already accustomed to. So there's still, I'm not saying it's frictionless, there's still a little bit of the you don't know versus with the camera, very clearly, and there are ways they're addressing that from a design form factor, but the general collective headspace around recording, around cameras has shifted really dramatically in the past several years. And we continue to see that as more and more video-based, social networks, as more and more video becomes the main medium in which younger generations and everyone functionally communicates. And so I think that's important to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I agree. We saw the same trend with the early days of the camera phone. There was a huge uproar in the early days, and we became, able to accept it.
Well, I want to have one last question here. There are some questions about hardware. For those specific questions, I do encourage you to reach out to Chelsea directly, so we don't have everyone here. But there is a great question about content that I think might be great for Rich and Chelsea to weigh in on. Are we going to be seeing more content being ported over, higher resolution content or VR content or mobile AR content, or are you seeing instead for Zapbox and for your existing Mad Gaze headsets specific types of content? Like what type of content do you think is going to be used right now and maybe in the immediate future?
Well, I'll go ahead first. So for contents wise, I mean, there are already a lot of video contents already available in the market. However, they might not be like 100% ideal for the smart glasses itself. But you can treat it as an extension of your mobile phone screen. So you can have a more immersive viewing experience on that. And at the same time, like high resolution contents and also VR, it actually requires you to have a higher specification on the mobile, mobile phone itself to give you, especially when you need to like display contents with really high polygons and stuff. So this is something really important. Is not really like related to the display itself, because the displays nowadays, I mean, the optical engines are really advanced, even though it's not like really thin, like just like normal glasses, not normal like lenses, but that will be already good enough to display really high quality images and give you a really extraordinary viewing experience. And in terms of VR, like Mangaze, we have made it, we have introduced also the 3D viewing experience as well. So we have put efforts on designing the optical engine itself, so to allow users to be able to also view VR contents on AR headsets. However, I would say this is not the best way to present VR contents on our smart glasses, but just an entry for you guys to also like bring different kinds of contents on these kind of products, because I think like AR glasses is actually like less immersive. I would say the experience is immersive, but in terms of like viewing experience is more safe and safe for you to like use it in different environments and also use cases.
Yeah, no, it recalls a little bit what Kieran was saying about sort of tailor-made content being sort of king as these devices move forward. Rich, how about yourself? Any take on sort of what types of applications you're seeing for Zapbox in the immediate future?
Yeah, so I think it's, because for this next iteration of Zapbox, we are going to provide a Unity SDK. I think this possibility of porting existing kind of Unity AR experiences to Zapbox is something we're quite interested in providing. It's something we're doing on the other side of our business with our Zapworks platform, Universal AR, to allow that to be viewed in web AR, for example. But I think it's something we're closely looking at as well for Zapbox to, access that existing content that's out there. On that topic, looking at something like PC VR streaming to take advantage of that and using frameworks like NVIDIA's Cloud XR, that's something that we're planning on providing compatibility with. You look a bit further down the road, and I know speaking of buzzwords like metaverse, like 5G, how is that going to impact things and that capabilities? But getting access to that more, that bandwidth and being able to stream things much easier through something like that, and having, say, cloud rendered AR experiences to be brought down on form factors like consumer smart glasses or something like Zapbox. I think that's another key enabler, and maybe is a little bit further down the road, but something that we're keen in providing as well. Like all these type of experiences, I think the stuff that gets the most viability is something that doesn't have to be as advanced or complex. Even something as simple as a 3D visualization or product visualization tool to see what certain things look like in AR. I think that is kind of the stepping stone into being able to get access or have people experience much more advanced experiences. So things like that we're looking to leverage and offer out of the gate, so people can get into that and start to think of and ideate more things from there.
I mean, there are so many more questions. I unfortunately don't think we can get to them all today. We are already 11 minutes over, 12 minutes over. I appreciate our panelists for your time. So everyone, quiet round of applause. I greatly appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to all of them directly if you have any continued questions. And we, of course, look forward to you having opportunities to join us at future On Nights or at AWSA. So please look us up if you'll be there. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there in person. So again, thank you. The recording will be put onto the YouTube if you did join late, so you'll have everything have access there, and we look forward to you joining us next time.